you're not just learning English. You're choosing a voice that will introduce you to the world, a voice that will open doors or quietly close them. And here's the truth nobody tells you clearly. Not all English sounds the same. One sentence can live two lives. One word can carry two accents. One language can feel like two different worlds. Today, you step into both. There was a student named Daniel who moved from a small town to a big American city. He had studied English for years. Grammar, strong. Vocabulary, impressive. Confidence, high. But on his first day, someone asked him, "Want to grab fries?" Daniel froze, because in his mind, fries didn't exist. He only knew chips. That moment wasn't about vocabulary. It was about identity. American English and British English are like two siblings raised in different homes. They share the same roots, but they grew into different personalities. In this journey, you won't just memorize differences, you'll feel them. Because real fluency is not just about speaking correctly, it's about understanding people naturally. And that's where your transformation begins. Let's step into sound, the heartbeat of language. Imagine hearing the word water. In American English, it flows like water soft, quick, almost relaxed. In British English, it becomes wo-tuh clear, crisp, more defined. Same word, different rhythm. This is where many learners struggle. Not because they don't know English, but because they don't recognize the music of it. American English often connects sounds. It blends. It reduces. It feels like a fast river. British English, especially traditional accents, tends to pronounce words more distinctly, like stepping stones. When you listen, don't just hear words. Hear movement, because once you understand the rhythm, speaking becomes natural, not forced. Now let's talk about everyday words, the ones that quietly confuse you. Imagine you walk into a place and say, "Where is the lift?" In the US, people might pause, then realize you mean the elevator. Or you say, "I live in a flat." In America, that becomes an apartment. These aren't difficult words, but in real conversations, they matter. Because language is not just understood, it's felt instantly. If you use the wrong version for your environment, people still understand you. But there's a small delay, a tiny gap, a moment where connection slows down. Your goal isn't perfection. Your goal is smooth communication. And that comes from choosing the right version for the right place. Let's go deeper into spelling. The silent difference you see but often ignore. Color or color. Favorite or favorite. American English removes what it sees as unnecessary. It simplifies. It moves faster. British English keeps tradition alive. It holds on to older forms, honoring history. Neither is wrong. But here's where learners make a mistake. They mix both randomly. They write color in one sentence and favorite in the next. And without realizing it, their writing loses consistency. Think of it like wearing two different styles at the same time. It's not confusing, it's distracting. So choose your lane. If your goal is American fluency, stay consistent. Let your writing match your voice, because clarity builds confidence. Now, something subtle but powerful. Politeness. In British English, politeness often sounds more formal. Would you mind passing the salt? In American English, it's simpler. Can you pass the salt? Both are polite, but the tone is different. British English can feel more indirect, softer. American English often feels direct, but still friendly. If you misunderstand this, you might think someone is rude. when they're just being culturally normal. Language is not just words, it's behavior. And when you learn the tone behind the words, you stop misjudging people and start connecting with them. Let's pause for a moment. You've seen pronunciation, vocabulary, spelling, and tone. But here's the deeper question. Who do you want to sound like? Not what is better, not what is correct, but what fits your dream. If you want to study, work, or live in the United States, then American English becomes your tool. Its rhythm, its expressions, its simplicity. And once you commit to that path, everything becomes easier. Because confusion disappears when direction is clear. The journey doesn't end here. In the next lessons, you'll step into real conversations, hidden grammar differences, and the psychology of sounding natural, not robotic. And something surprising will happen. You won't just learn English, you'll start thinking in it. Right now, you're standing between two versions of the same language. But soon, you'll speak with one clear voice. So don't rush, don't stress. Just stay with the journey. Because every lesson you complete is one step closer to confidence. Say this to yourself right now. I am not confused. I am learning. I am not behind. I am building. My voice matters. Daniel thought he understood the difference now, until he heard someone say, "I'll call you on the weekend." He paused again, because in his learning, it had always been at the weekend. This is where grammar quietly shifts. Not dramatically, not loudly, but enough to make you second-guess yourself. American English prefers on the weekend. British English leans toward at the weekend. It's a small change, a tiny word. But in real conversations, these small details build your natural flow. Fluency isn't about big grammar rules you memorize once. It's about these little choices you repeat every day, without thinking. And that's where you're heading, toward effortlessness. Now imagine this. You're sitting in a cafe. Someone asks, "Did you already eat?" Simple question. Easy, right? But in British English, you might hear, "Have you eaten yet?" Same meaning, different structure. American English often uses the past simple, where British English prefers the present perfect. I already finished versus I have already finished. This difference can confuse learners deeply because both are correct. But here's the secret. American English focuses on completion. British English often emphasizes connection to the present. You don't need to overthink it. If your goal is American English, keep it simple. Speak naturally, shorter sentences, clear meaning. That's power. Let's step into something emotional, humor. Because language isn't just for information, it's for connection. American humor often moves fast. It's direct, it's expressive. British humor, it can be dry, subtle, sometimes even sarcastic in a quiet way. Imagine someone says, "That's interesting." In American English, it might mean genuine curiosity. In British English, depending on tone, it could mean, "That's actually not impressive." Same words, different feeling. If you only understand vocabulary, you miss the emotion. And if you miss the emotion, you miss the conversation. So start listening deeper. Not just to what people say, but to what they mean. Now, let's talk about everyday survival English. You're walking down a street in the US and you ask, "Where's the nearest petrol station?" People will understand, but it's not natural. In American English, it's a gas station. Petrol becomes gas, holiday becomes vacation, biscuit becomes cookie. These are not just words. They are cultural signals. When you use the local version, something changes instantly. people feel closer to you. Language becomes a bridge, not a barrier. And that's what real fluency feels like. Let's go deeper into pronunciation again. But this time, something more subtle. The letter R. In American English, R is strong. It's pronounced clearly. Car sounds like car. Hard sounds like hard. But in many British accents, the R at the end softens or disappears. Car becomes ka. Hard becomes had. This one difference alone can completely change how you sound. And here's something important. Your accent is not just about correctness. It's about clarity. If your listener understands you easily, your English is working. So don't chase perfection, chase connection. Daniel reached a moment where he had to choose. Not between right and wrong, but between two directions. He realized something powerful. Trying to learn both styles at the same time kept him stuck. He mixed vocabulary. He mixed pronunciation. He hesitated more than he spoke. Then one day, he made a decision. I will focus on American English. And suddenly, everything became clearer. His sentences became faster. His confidence grew stronger. His voice became consistent. This is your turning point too. You can understand both, but choose one to master. Now let's step into real conversation flow. In American English, people often shorten phrases naturally. Want to becomes wanna. Going to becomes gonna. Did you becomes didya. These are not mistakes. These are real-life spoken patterns, but many learners avoid them because they were never taught in school. So they speak correctly, but unnaturally. Fluency is not just about correctness. It's about sounding alive. Start noticing how native speakers actually speak, not in textbooks, but in real life. That's where transformation happens. Let's talk about confidence, the hidden layer of language. Many learners think, what if I mix American and British English? What if I say something wrong? Here's the truth. People don't expect perfection. They expect communication. Even native speakers mix styles sometimes, especially in today's global world. What matters is this. Are you understood? Are you confident? Are you expressing yourself clearly? If yes, you're already winning. So release the fear, because fear slows learning, but action accelerates it. Close your eyes for a second and imagine this. You walk into a room. You speak clearly, naturally, smoothly. People listen. They respond. They connect. Not because your English is perfect, but because your voice is real. That future is not far away. It's built one lesson at a time, one correction at a time, one brave sentence at a time. And right now, you're already on that path. You've come further than you think. You're no longer just learning differences. You're building awareness. And awareness turns into skill. Skill turns into confidence. And confidence turns into opportunity. Say this again, slowly. I am improving every day. I am not afraid to speak. I am becoming fluent. The next lessons will take you even deeper into real-life dialogues, listening mastery, and thinking in American English without translation. And that's where everything changes. The next shift Daniel experienced didn't come from a classroom. It came from a misunderstanding. Someone said to him, I'll meet you outside. Simple, clear. But when he stepped out, he waited at the wrong place, because in his mind, outside meant directly in front of the building. For the other person, it meant near the parking area. This is where language meets reality. American English often depends heavily on context. Words stay simple, but meaning depends on the situation. British English sometimes adds more clarity in phrasing. American English often expects you to feel the situation. So don't just learn words, learn environments. Because fluency is not about translating sentences. It's about reacting naturally in real moments. Now let's talk about something many learners ignore. Speed. American English is fast, not just because people speak quickly, but because sounds are reduced. Let me becomes lemme. Give me becomes gimme. Words connect like a chain. British English, especially in clearer accents, often separates words more distinctly. So when learners listen to American English for the first time, they feel lost. It's not your fault. Your brain is trying to catch individual words. But American English is about flow, not separation. The solution? Stop chasing every word. Start understanding the overall message. Because real listening is not about hearing everything. It's about understanding enough. Daniel once said, "I need to revise this topic." In the US, people looked confused for a moment, because revise is more common in British English. In American English, it becomes review. Again, the difference is small, but the impact is real. There are hundreds of these word pairs. Not to memorize all at once, but to notice over time. Because repetition builds familiarity, and familiarity builds confidence. So every time you learn one new difference, you're not just learning a word, you're upgrading your communication. Let's go deeper into something powerful: intonation. This is how your voice rises and falls. In American English, statements often feel relaxed, with a slight drop at the end. Questions? They rise more clearly. In British English, the melody can feel more varied, sometimes even more expressive depending on the region. Here's the truth. You can say the exact same sentence and completely change its meaning with your tone. I didn't say that. Try saying it with stress on different words. Each version tells a different story. So if you want to sound natural, don't just practice words. Practice how your voice moves, because your voice carries emotion, not just meaning. Now imagine this real situation. You're in the US, and someone says, "You good?" That's it. Just 2 words. No grammar structure, no full sentence. But it means, "Are you okay? Do you need anything? Everything fine?" This is everyday American English, short, efficient, natural. But for learners, it feels incomplete, because you were taught full sentences. This is where you evolve. You don't abandon grammar, you expand beyond it. You start understanding real-life shortcuts, and suddenly, conversations feel easier. Let's talk about spelling again, but from a deeper angle. In American English, you'll see center. In British English, it becomes center. Meter versus meter. Analyze versus analyze. These changes are not random. American English simplified many spellings over time. British English preserved traditional forms. But here's what matters for you. Consistency creates professionalism. If you're writing emails, essays, or content, choose one style and stay with it. Because consistency tells people, this person knows what they're doing. And that builds trust instantly. Daniel reached a point where he stopped translating in his head. Before, every sentence went through a process. Think in his native language, translate to English, check grammar, then speak. Too slow. But after consistent exposure to American English, movies, conversations, repetition, something changed. He started thinking directly in English. Not perfectly, not always, but enough to respond naturally. This is your next level. And it doesn't come from memorization. It comes from immersion. So surround yourself with the English you want to speak, because your brain adapts to what it hears most. Let's break a myth. Some learners believe British English sounds more intelligent, and American English sounds more casual. That belief can hold you back. Because language is not about superiority. It's about purpose. American English dominates global business, media, and technology. British English carries deep historical and cultural influence. Both are powerful. But your goal is not to impress with accent. Your goal is to communicate with clarity and confidence. That's real intelligence. Now, something practical. Imagine you're writing a message. I'll meet you at 5. In American English, time expressions are often straightforward, but formats can differ slightly, like writing dates. In the US, month, day, year. In the UK, day, month, year. This may seem small until it causes confusion. April 5th. Is it April 5th or May 4th? So always be aware of your audience, because communication is not just what you say. It's what others understand. Pause here. Look at how far you've come. You started with simple word differences, and now you're understanding rhythm, tone, speed, emotion, and real-life usage. This is not basic learning anymore. This is transformation. And the best part? You didn't rush. You stayed with the process, and that's why it's working. Close your eyes again for a moment. Imagine speaking to someone from the United States and not feeling nervous. No hesitation, no fear of mistakes. Just flow. That version of you is being built right now. Not in one big moment, but in these small lessons. Because mastery is not a single step. It's a series of small wins repeated consistently. And you're already winning. You're no longer just learning English differences. You're developing awareness, control, and confidence. And that's rare. Most people quit before this point. But you didn't. Say this with strength. I understand more than before. I speak better than before. I am moving forward. The next lessons will take you into deeper, real-world conversations, advanced listening skills, and how to respond instantly without thinking too much. That's where fluency becomes automatic. Daniel didn't notice the change at first. It happened quietly. One day someone said something fast, too fast, and instead of freezing, he responded instantly. Not perfectly, not with perfect grammar, but naturally. That's the moment every learner waits for. The moment when English stops feeling like a subject and starts feeling like a tool. In American English, this moment comes faster when you stop overthinking structure and start trusting exposure. Because real conversations don't wait for perfect sentences. They move. And now, so do you. Let's step into something powerful. Phrasal verbs. American English uses them constantly. Pick up, drop off, figure out, run into. At first, they feel confusing. One verb, many meanings. But here's the truth. Phrasal verbs are not advanced English. They are real English. In British English, you may sometimes hear more formal alternatives. But in American conversations, phrasal verbs dominate. I will investigate this becomes I'll look into it. Shorter, faster, more natural. If you want to sound like a real speaker, this is your doorway. Now imagine this situation. Someone in the US says, "I'm good." You might think it means they are feeling great. But context changes everything. It can also mean, "No, thank you. I don't need anything. I'm okay." 3 meanings, 2 words. This is where learners get confused. Because dictionaries teach definitions, but real life teaches usage. So train your mind to read situations. Because understanding English is not just about words. It's about intention. Let's talk about energy in speech. American English often sounds more expressive. People emphasize words strongly. That was amazing. I really need this. The energy rises and falls clearly. British English, depending on the speaker, may sound more controlled or subtle. Neither is better. But if you're learning American English, don't be afraid to show energy. Because flat speech sounds unnatural, even if your grammar is perfect. Your voice should carry emotion, because emotion makes language memorable. Daniel once said, "Shall we begin?" It sounded correct, but in American English, it felt distant, formal, almost unnatural. In the US, it's more common to hear, "Should we start?" or simply, "Let's start." Shall exists, but it's rare in everyday American speech. This is something many learners don't realize. You can speak perfect English and still sound unnatural. So your goal is not just correctness, it's naturalness. And that comes from listening to how people actually speak today. Now let's step into numbers and counting style. In British English, you might hear 120. In American English, it often becomes 120. That small "and" disappears. Again, tiny difference. But when you hear it repeatedly, you start recognizing the pattern. Fluency grows through patterns, not rules alone. So train your ear to notice these subtle shifts, because once you hear them enough, you'll start using them without thinking. Let's talk about something deeper. Fear of judgment. Many learners hesitate because they worry. What if my accent is mixed? What if I sound wrong? Here's the reality. Even native speakers have different accents, styles, and variations. There is no single, perfect voice. There is only clear communication. So don't let small differences stop you from speaking. Because silence is the only real mistake. Every time you speak, you improve. Every time you try, you grow. Daniel reached a point where he stopped asking, "Is this American or British?" and started asking, "Is this natural for my goal?" That shift changed everything, because he stopped chasing labels and started building fluency. You don't need to analyze every word. You need to practice consistently. Listen, repeat, use. That's a cycle. And if you stay in that cycle long enough, fluency becomes automatic. Now imagine a real conversation. Someone says, "Hang on." Not about hanging anything. It means wait or hold on. These expressions are everywhere in American English. They are fast, flexible, and context-driven. But if you try to translate them literally, you'll get lost. So stop translating. Start absorbing. Because language is not math, it's experience. Let's pause again. Take a breath. Look at what you can understand now. Fast speech, shortened forms, emotional tone, cultural context. You are no longer a beginner. You are building awareness at a higher level. And this level requires patience. Because growth here is less visible, but more powerful. You won't always notice improvement daily. But one day, you'll realize you're speaking without fear. Close your eyes one more time. Imagine being in a real American conversation. You listen, you respond, you laugh. You don't translate. You don't panic. You just exist in the language. That moment is coming, not because you're lucky, but because you're consistent. And consistency always wins. You are not the same learner you were at the beginning. Now, you hear more. You understand more. You feel the language more. And that's the real shift. Say it with confidence. I am becoming natural. I am learning through action. I am moving closer to fluency every day. The next lessons will take you even deeper into advanced conversation patterns, real-life reactions, and how to think and respond instantly like a native speaker. That's where mastery begins. There comes a moment in every learner's journey when understanding is no longer the problem. Hesitation is. Daniel noticed it clearly. He could understand almost everything people said. Movies made sense. Conversations felt easier to follow. But when it was his turn to speak, there was still a pause, a small delay. Not because he didn't know the words, but because he was still choosing them carefully. This is the bridge between learning and fluency. In American English, natural speakers don't search for perfect words. They use available words quickly. So instead of asking, "Is this the best sentence?" start asking, "Can I say this clearly right now?" Speed builds confidence. Confidence builds fluency. And fluency removes hesitation. Let's step into something powerful: fillers. In American English, people use small words to hold the conversation while thinking. Like, you know. Many learners think these are bad habits. But in reality, they are communication tools. They give your brain time to think without breaking the flow. British English uses fillers too, but sometimes with slightly different patterns or frequency. The key is not to overuse them, but to use them naturally. Because silence feels uncomfortable in conversation. But fillers keep the connection alive. Now imagine this situation. Someone says, "I kinda get it." Kinda means kind of. But it's not just a shortcut. It changes the tone. I understand sounds strong. I kinda understand sounds softer, more honest. American English is full of these softeners. Sort of. A little. Pretty much. They make conversations feel less rigid, more human. Because real communication is not always absolute. It's flexible. And when you learn to soften your language, you sound more natural instantly. Let's talk about agreement and reaction. In British English, you might hear, "I suppose so." Quite right. In American English, reactions are often quicker and more casual. "Yeah. Right. Exactly. Got it." These small responses are everywhere, and they matter more than you think. Because conversation is not just about speaking, it's about responding. If you stay silent, the conversation feels broken. But when you react naturally, you keep it alive. Daniel once heard someone say, "I'm all set." He paused, because it didn't match anything he had learned before. But in American English, it's common. It means, "I'm ready. I don't need anything else." This is where real learning happens. Not in textbooks, but in moments of confusion that turn into understanding. Every time you discover a phrase like this, your English becomes more real. Now let's step into connected speech at a deeper level. In American English, words don't just connect, they transform. "Don't you" sounds like "don'tcha." "Got to" becomes "gotta." This is why listening feels difficult sometimes. Because what you hear doesn't match what you learned. But here's the key. Your brain needs exposure, not perfection. Listen again and again. Because once your brain recognizes the pattern, it stops feeling difficult and starts feeling normal. Let's go deeper into confidence under pressure. Imagine someone asks you a question suddenly. No preparation. No time to think. This is where many learners freeze. But American English conversations move fast. So you don't need perfect answers. You need quick responses, even simple ones. "I think so." "Maybe." "Not really." "I'm not sure." These short answers keep the conversation moving. And that's what matters. Because fluency is not about long sentences. It's about continuous flow. Daniel reached a point where mistakes no longer scared him. He realized something powerful. Mistakes didn't stop conversations. Silence did. When he spoke, even with errors, people responded, understood, and continued. That changed his mindset completely, because he stopped aiming for perfection and started aiming for participation. And that's when his growth accelerated. So if you're waiting to be perfect before speaking, you're delaying your progress. Speak now. Improve as you go. Now imagine this. You're watching an American movie. At first, you needed subtitles. Now, you don't. You understand tone, emotion, even jokes. That's not luck. That's progress. Your brain has adapted. And this is how fluency grows. Not suddenly, but gradually. So trust the process. Even when it feels slow, it's working. Let's step into something deeper. Identity through language. The way you speak shapes how people see you. Not just your words, but your rhythm, your tone, your confidence. When you commit to American English, you're not losing anything. You're gaining a new way to express yourself, a new voice. And that voice can open opportunities you never imagined. So don't treat English like a subject. Treat it like a skill that transforms your life. Pause here. Think about your journey. From confusion to clarity, from hesitation to expression. You didn't reach fluency yet, but you're not where you started, and that matters. Because progress is not about being perfect. It's about moving forward. And you are moving. Close your eyes one last time. Imagine yourself speaking English confidently in real life. At work, in school, in conversations. No fear, no overthinking. Just natural communication. That version of you is not a dream. That version of you is not a dream. It's a direction. And every lesson you've completed has taken you closer. This is not the end. It's the beginning of a new phase. Because now, you don't just learn English. You use it. You experience it. You live it. American English is no longer something outside you. It's becoming part of you. And once that happens, fluency is not a goal anymore. It's a result. You started this journey with curiosity. Now you stand with awareness, skill, and growing confidence. You understand the differences. You feel the rhythm. You recognize real speech. And most importantly, you didn't quit. Say this with full belief. I can speak English. I am improving every day. I am ready to use my voice. The world is waiting to hear you. Not perfect, not flawless, but real. If you made it this far, you're not just a learner anymore. You're becoming a speaker. Type Vault Complete and begin using your English in the real world today. Continue. You've already reached Lesson 50, which completed the full core journey. But if you want something truly powerful, we can go beyond the standard structure. What comes next is not repetition. This is the Advanced Vault Extension, where learners stop learning English and start living in English. After everything Daniel learned, one final challenge remained. Real conversations don't follow lessons. They interrupt. They overlap. They move fast. One day, two people started talking to him at the same time. Different accents. Different speeds. Before, he would have frozen. But this time, he didn't. He didn't try to understand every word. He focused on the main idea. And he responded. That moment changed everything. Because fluency is not about controlled environments. It's about handling the unexpected. And now, You're stepping into that level. Let's go deeper into something most learners never master: thinking speed. In American English, conversations expect quick reactions, not perfect answers, not long explanations, just natural responses. If someone says, "That was crazy, right?" you don't pause for grammar. You say, "Yeah, seriously." "I know, right?" "Totally." These are instant reactions, and they make you sound fluent, even with simple words. So train your mind to respond quickly, not perfectly, because speed creates flow. Now imagine this. You're in a group conversation. People are laughing, interrupting, adding ideas. You want to speak, but you wait. And then the moment passes. This is where many learners struggle, not because of English, but because of timing. In American English, conversations are dynamic. You don't always wait for a perfect pause. You enter naturally, even with small phrases. "Yeah, and also, oh, that reminds me. Wait, listen." These are your entry points. Use them, because your voice deserves to be heard. Let's talk about confidence signals. Sometimes, it's not what you say. It's how you say it. Compare this. "I think, maybe, I'm not sure, but," versus "I think this works." Same idea, different impact. American English often favors direct confidence, even if you're not 100% sure, because confidence invites trust. So reduce unnecessary hesitation, speak clearly, and let your voice carry certainty. This is your final transformation. You no longer need to ask, "Is this American or British? Is this correct?" Now you ask, "Can I express myself clearly? Can I connect with people?" Because that's what language is for. Connection, expression, opportunity. And now you have all three. Take a moment. Look back at where you started. Confusion, doubt, hesitation. And now, awareness, growth, confidence. You didn't just learn English differences. You built a new way to communicate, a new way to think, a new way to show the world who you are. Say this slowly, and mean it. I am not afraid to speak. I am ready for real conversations. My voice matters. Now there's only one thing left. Not another lesson. Not another explanation. Action. Speak today. Listen today. Use English today, even if it's not perfect. Because perfection doesn't create fluency. Practice does. This is not the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your real voice.